Go ahead.
In this book, titled The Principles of Neuroscience, it's one of the best compilations you can find for all the most recent up-to-date research on each anatomical part of the brain and each sensory system. It's organized and detailed for any student in the budding field. I'm going to try and give a summary of some of the information in this book, and also from other fundamental math, physics, biology, neuroscience, psychology, and chemistry classes I've taken in order to illustrate the similarities we share with all the other animals on this planet. Let's start with the thalamus. This is a part of the brain directly in the center that every single neuronal connection has to go through. Every sensory input has to go through the thalamus and before it goes to the cortex. Every part from the cortex has to go through the thalamus to get to another part of the cortex. And then every motor fiber connection has to go back down through the thalamus to get to the body, the motor fiber. And we used to think, for this reason, as neuroscientists, we used to think that it was a relay, just a relay for all the information. What we're realizing now is that the thalamus is actually basically the decision maker it's basically where you can consider we are located for all our decision making skills. And then it sends one fiber out to for every fiber it sends out to the cortex sends 10 fibers back. We've learned from this that the thalamus is basically checking what it's got with the cortex, and the cortex is responding, saying, we got the same thing up here, pretty much. So the hippocampus directly surrounding the thalamus is also a very important anatomical structure. It can be considered the index to all the memories we've ever had in our life. So it helps you form your identity. This structure is directly integrated with the amygdala, the emotional epicenter of the brain. These structures in tandem help you form associated fear memories or associated memories of good relationships. And a few other, these subcortical structures and a few other structures like the cerebellum are common between us and all other animals that you find in the books article. Like, for example, birds, social animals like birds and the way they fly in the deep formation, dolphins, dogs, other mammals like rats, aardvarks, goldfish, whatever. They all have the same fundamental organization of thought processes that must pass through these same structures with the same cellular mechanics. Humans, the way we like to distinguish ourselves, is we have this cortex that bulges larger than any other species. And this is simply, my argument, it's essentially the human adaptation to its environment. At one point, it became advantageous to have a little bit more awareness about the problems we monkeys were trying to solve. So we adapted our frontal lobes by expansion. My question is, are those extra calculations in the cortex really also important? I think they only really distinguish humans from animals 1/10 as much as we are similar to them. That's over a 90-10 percentile relationship. The brainstem, which the thalamus sits right above, is also common in all the animals I listed. It's essential for breathing, heart rate, digestion, and it basically keeps us alive. It's a direct connection to the spinal cord, which, as we're figuring out now, is a location for a lot more processing than we once thought. It's not just simple reactions to our environment. There's a lot of gray matter in there that processes the environment. A good example of this is, here's the brain. You can point out the thalamus. Here's the cerebellum and the brainstem, spinal cord, supracortex. A good example of this is the Mike the Headless Chicken case. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. This was verified at the University of Utah. It's a pretty popular story about this chicken. The farmer tried to cut his head off right around here. He cut off this entire region right above the brainstem, and the chicken was able to survive for 18 months without a head. And They fed him through a feeding tube, and he was able to walk around. There's multiple cases of this, of cats walking, and even tripping over obstacles and catching themselves without heads, with the entire part of their head totally non-functional. So a lot of people don't know about this, but it's a famous story. People with guillotines in the French Revolution, for example, could take up to 32 steps afterwards. They would get up. People would take bets on after the head was chopped off. This complex reaction the body has to get up, stand up, and walk off the stage. And sometimes they would run off the stage. And people would take bets on how far the body would make it. And it's pretty crazy. But also, I wanted to talk about the reward pathway. This is a reward pathway. Is like the connection between the brainstem and the subcortical structures I talked about earlier. It's essential for all the animals I talked about to figure out what it wants in its environment, positive and negative reinforcement. It's also necessary in not just those animals, but also flies and other insects. Plants and fungi have their own functioning reward pathways that use many of the exact same molecular transmitters as our brain. Another thing that fish and frogs and other animals have in common with us is the ability to interpret light, different energy photon waves in order to perceive an image. In our eye, the retinal cells are considered the first level of processing in the brain. They are basically structured to perceive contrast. That's why you can see this image, you see the little black dot when you look at it. It's because our eyes are conditioned to perceive contrast in our environment. One benefit of that is to be able to distinguish a shape in our environment, like light from dark, or distinguish lines, or distance, near from far, or movement vectors, or even in our auditory system, a high-pitched sound from a low one. So this is what helps us make sense of our environment. So our brains are trained to critique, to make distinctions about those differences in our environment, like a 5% difference, 10% difference. But if we can begin to appreciate how we all really are, like 90 to 95% similar with all those animals, then hopefully we'll begin to better appreciate our world in the same way any animal or passive plant might. For all its peaks and troughs, and everything in between. Since we were children, we've learned to seek out that 5 to 10% difference between things, treating every relationship as if it were some dichotomy with absolutes. This critical technique is essential to education, but it's not entirely representative of any of Earth's natural fundamental mechanisms. So I ask you, if you wanted to do something to learn about those other animals, learn about that other 95% of the spectrum, go try and communicate with your dog or cat. First by getting on all fours and mimicking his or her social behavior. See what you can learn from that plant in your room who responds to the environment in the same way you do, stretching and growing for resources, energy, and water in the ground. If by this logic, if we are 90% similar to most animals, and 95% similar to monkeys, and we're about 1% the same. We're only 1% different from all other humans in this world, including people with disabilities. So go adopt another this person with disability into your family or someone. And for all those parts of the spectrum we've clearly been missing, refer to Earth's other organisms. They can help us see the missing 90%. Thank you.